There's an interesting little reality of life. Even though my siblings and I, for example, were raised in the same household, the same family, we ended up living in different places over the course of time, and my oldest sister, for example, spent very little time in the area of Darwin in the Northern Territory of Australia, where I spent almost 4 years, 4 years, I don't know, some time. And it meant that our upbringing was different even though we were raised in the same family. We didn't have the same upbringing. Things changed as time went on. Also, of course, my parents learned more about life as they went on, and that changed how they looked at the world and therefore how they dealt with me and the siblings who were closer to me in age. The reality is that this sort of thing means that you end up going through phases in life. I think I did anyway. And my phases started with sort of this whirlwind of I don't know where I am lots of the time, to this place of I started to sort of find my feet and my voice a little bit, to a place of realization that I really didn't have very much to say, so it was probably time for me to be quiet. And then to a place where I decided I finally did have some things to say that were probably a little bit at least valuable to the people around me. That's sort of what provoked me to talk on the subject of something to say on today's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday the 29th of January of 2022. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on minds.com, on locals.com, on my Facebook page, wherever you happen to be catching me today. Welcome aboard, and I'm going to talk today on the subject of something to say. So let me go ahead and get into my notes here really quick to give you some idea of exactly what it is that I'm talking about. There are people out there who can make the most ridiculous sentiments and ideas flow like honey off the tongue. I can do that if I choose to, though not nearly to the level of the more skilled. There are those who are a great deal better at that than I am. I spent years not writing or doing a great deal of speaking. I had one objection to spending my time in such pursuits. I felt like I had nothing to say. Only when I began to realize I had some things worth putting out there did I begin the process of communicating with longevity in mind. I always want to speak to the long term. I'm not a great fan of trying to cover the short. Sadly, there are a good many people in the modern day who, though they're skilled wordsmiths and similar, have little to nothing meaningful to convey. Were it true, their lack of message caused them to hold their collective tongue, things would be a far sight better in my opinion. Since that's not true, the amount of verbal and written waste has become a great deal weightier for folks to deal with. And because the flowery language being used can make the stuff found on the inside of a compost bin sound good, people are drawn into the cesspool by the ornamental gabbery in use. What's maybe a little worse is that those writing or speaking in such attractive ways end up with half of the truth. The other half is often somewhere between a flight of fancy and straight-out insanity. Sometimes it's just lies, to be fair. It's not really hard to understand that a bunch of folks are confused into believing and supporting pure garbage by others who can make a dumpster fire sound like a lovely thing. The sad reality is, many folks have neither time nor resource nor wherewithal to pay good attention, much less to analyze the words and ideas of others. What makes things even harder is that censorship is not a good solution to such things. If you make it your business to keep the words of such people off the lips of others, those individuals simply become counterculture icons. The better answer is still not ideal, though it's better by far than muzzling others. That would be going to war on the battlefield of ideas. The problem? To begin with, there's a good chance some folks are going to hear one side of the argument and miss the other entirely. Another issue would be that, again, there are folks who are all but experts at making rubbish sound appealing. On the other side of that coin, there are people who really understand why one thing is superior to another, but are unable to vocalize or verbalize what they know. Sadly, this often means that though one person has better ideas and concepts because he or she is not a gifted smith of words, others are more smitten to somebody espousing different and often bad views. Sadly, it can be argued that people putting forth horrible concepts have something to say, even though they're putting forth stuff that's horrible. Okay, done with my notes. Let's get on with the rest of the conversation. I should point out that there's another consideration that I've heard a lot of people bring forward, and I think that there's something to it, and it is that there's a tendency towards what amounts to a cult of personality where certain people are concerned. I don't like to name names, but I listened often to the arguments and statements of one Barack Hussein Obama. And I'm going to tell you that where the guy sounded good, and from a personality perspective, he had a personality that a lot of people really liked. As far as I'm concerned, most of the things Mr. Obama had to say were just plain horse manure. They were just horrible. I don't care. I either talked or I'm going to talk on the idea of transcendent fame. I don't really care whether Mr. Obama is black, white, pink, or yellow. As it happens, it turns out that he's half, Ghanaian or Kenyan, I think, and half, quote, white, half European. So really the idea of calling him black is kind of a questionable one to me. I recognize that there's the one-drop theory, which is a rubbish idea to me to begin with. But the point is, totally aside from the color of Mr. Obama's skin or his familial origins, the fact of the matter is I don't care about any of that. What the guy said lots of the time, to me, I looked at it and I said, yeah, I've heard this before out of the mouths of communists, socialists, and dictators. I'm sorry, I've heard all of this before, and I don't ascribe to it anymore when it comes out of his mouth than when it comes out of theirs. It doesn't matter whether it's Stalin or Obama who said that. It doesn't make a difference at all to me. Those things are not things I will support and believe. That being said, I'm going to say this again. Whether it's the cult of personality or the fact that people just don't do a good job of expressing themselves, whatever it happens to be, whether it's that this person is more folksy when they talk and people like that better, or whether it's because this person seems like they're intelligent, I think probably I would be accused of the latter before being accused of the former. I don't know, maybe that's not true, but I think that's the case. Let me just tell you something. My intelligence notwithstanding, the fact of the matter is what I say only is reasonable when it's reasonable. And it's not reasonable if it's not. It's not worth anything when it's not. When I say things to you and the things that I say are not, you can observe them, you can look at them, and you can go, that's not true, that's not right, or whatever, then when it comes right down to brass tacks, it's kind of silly for you to assume or accept that what I'm saying is something that you ought to be listening to and believing. It's just not the case. It's just not true. And that's true for anybody else as much as it is for me. I'm going to say it again. I went through a period where I was whirlwind, and had no idea where I was. Went through a period where I thought I was kind of gaining my footing and sort of thought I had something to say, only to realize maybe I didn't. And then I came to the conclusion that there were things that I was saying that I thought were worthwhile to other people, for other people to hear. But I have to tell you that there are lots of people out there who are spouting stuff, and the stuff that they're spouting is just not worth your time or effort. It's just not. And I'm sorry that if you get caught up in that. And I urge everyone, look, take everything everyone says, me included. I'm not trying to exclude myself from this. Take everything everyone says with a grain of salt. Don't assume that just because it sounds like somebody has something to say, that means that they actually do, because that's not how that works. You should be looking at what they're saying, and it's on you to decide whether or not what they're saying is worthwhile, useful, or not. And I recognize when you're younger, that's harder to do. Okay, This is one of those that I could talk on for a while, but I need to go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 29th of January, 2021. That would be the end of that Sabbath at the sundown today. That means tomorrow will be Sunday, the 30th of January of 2022. In case I said 2021 earlier, excuse me. And that will be the beginning of the Christian week, according to what most of us Christian folk believe. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on minds.com, on Locals, and if you happen to see me on my Facebook page, as well as I think I'm putting myself on Parler and maybe a couple of other places these days as well. Definitely thank you for coming along today. Remember, Rumble is sort of my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a Rumble on Rumble. You can give me a like or dislike on any platform where that's available. And particularly if I put my content out there, hopefully I will see that and know how you're feeling about what it is that I'm putting out there. If comments are available on a given platform, you can of course comment, and I will do everything that I can to pay attention to your comments. And if I feel that it's a reasonable thing, I will respond. The subject for today has been something to say. Tomorrow we're going to talk about ascendancy and descendancy. Ascendant and descendant is how I put it as the subject. And this has to do with something that Dinesh D'Souza was talking about, where it comes to the place in the world where countries like America and India find themselves at present and where they seem to be headed in the future. I want to take a little bit of time and talk about some of the things that he said and maybe kind of put things in a slightly different light than the one that he did. That all being said, I hope that your day is a good one today and that things are going well for you. Hopefully you're having a good year so far. We're really getting down on that end of the January month for the new year. Already almost a 12th of the month or the year through. Obviously that's not a precise measure, but you get what I'm saying, right? 1 out of 12 months is almost under the bridge by this point. But I hope that things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was recorded on Saturday, January 29th of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.